Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria with another episode of the Sanity Project podcast. This is the place to discover a life of clarity, confidence, and success. And I do my best to get guests that support that context. Today's guest is Nick Powills. He's the author of Sticks and Stones. Nick strives to share how his personal struggle with weight and being teased as a kid fuels his drive toward being a successful entrepreneur. Powell's book, published by Inc. magazine, and his seminars help audiences learn how to turn their own struggles into strengths, helping them achieve more on their own terms. Nick founded No Limit Agency, a full-service communications agency, in 2008 and serves as the chief brand strategist for the Chicago-based firm. Nick also founded 1851 Franchise and ESTATENVY, two content marketing publication and platforms. Today, Nick is going to talk to us about the truth about entrepreneurs, how to leverage your personal story, which I promote, to drive success in your business goals. Welcome to the show, Nick Powills.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to our discussion.
Well, I'm grateful that you are here because you're in all the arenas that I think cover enough for entrepreneurs today that they would identify with your story and how you got here. And that would be my first question is, how did you get here today from where you started?
What a large question, and I could take up all of our time probably answering it. But the short version is at some point the collection of experiences of being told I wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough, I didn't look good enough, I didn't act the part. Whatever that ended up being, the sum of those parts made me say, you know what, I'm ready to go do this on my own, and happened to do that in 2008, at 27 years old. I clearly was not as self-aware that we were in the midst of the worst economic conditions of my lifetime. But that ended up working out in its favor because everyone else was scaling backwards, laying off, and I was scaling up. So some of the corners I was able to cut as a business operator ended up helping us get to where we are today. So today, we have 40 people. Our location is in the Prudential Building overlooking the Bean in downtown Chicago. There's been plenty of great things that have happened to get to today, but the lack of fulfillment still is there. I have big passion for making great things happen, and that's what I'm trying to do every day. Every day, just try to get a little bit better.
Well, you're doing it because that's all we have is the time that God gave us to make the impression on our universe and how we contribute to it. And you seem to be doing a good job. And I certainly identify with you coming in a recession in 2008. When I started my real estate career, one of the many I've had through my lifetime, I came in during a recession as well. And the good thing was that people were scaling back because they were frightened. I had no choice. So coming in at any time is where you need to do. That's the only thing that works. Is just do it when it works for you. So tell us about you were obviously chubby or overweight, whatever label you want to put on yourself. Yep. And you were struggling with it and being teased as a kid. I myself, when I was, good Lord, how old was I? I was 12 and I was 5'10", and I was like second tallest, and the tallest in the room was a guy. So I was called the Jolly Green Giant, which was really cute. It was not fun at all. And it was like, in spite of them, I would push myself forward and then just revel in my height and learn to stand up straight all the time. But it's interesting to be able to overcome what you did, because it may be fun to talk about it now, but it couldn't have been fun at the time to be teased.
No, and I mean, here's the truth. The book, the original title of the book was going to be called "I Will Always Be the Fat Kid." So that is still in there, and I think that's important to note for anybody that's gone through a tough thing, because you can reflect back and you can point at it and you remember how you felt, you remember how bad you felt, but at some point, and this is what the book starts to address. At some point, those half empty moments turn half full, and they turn into fuel. And when you look at it in a different light and say, what did I learn from those painful moments? You learn how to deal with adversity. You learn how to deal with conflict. You learn how to deal when something's not going the way that you perceive it should. So all those things happen, and I will always be the fat kid. The fat kid is still in me. Even I've now worked hard to get to 190 pounds, but at some point in high school, I hit 305 pounds. Mentally, it's still in there. Every time I put food into my mouth, I think about it, but I use it in a different way. So it's really the power of the chip on the shoulder. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. He goes on to be the greatest athlete of all time, and now the first athlete billionaire. Tom Brady, all teams overlooked him in the NFL draft 6 times over. Then he gets picked up. That chip on the shoulder is so valuable that when you start using it to your advantage, then all of a sudden it makes these brick walls in this very tough life that all of us are going to have to navigate. It makes those brick walls a little bit more easier to say, move out of the way. I'm going to keep going.
Well, so many things come to my mind. When you still see that fat kid, when you just said that, when you eat, have you come to terms with him? Do you have a relationship with him?
Yeah, of course, because here's the other truth. When I'm speaking at these conferences, I go through the whole equation, like a mad mathematician's equation of how do you crush it at being an entrepreneur? How do you crush it at business? How do you crush it at whatever you want to crush it at? And the truth is, when I get to the last slide, it says the answer's down below, and I flip to the final slide of the presentation, and the answer is you. And that is the truth. At the end of the day, nobody forced food into my body. Nobody forced me not to exercise. That was my decision. So the relationship that I have with that is the power of choice, that is something, as long as I am living and as long as I have my brain, it seems like that's something that I will have, and it is a powerful tool. So the relationship that I have with the fatter version of myself that is still deep within my soul is it motivates me when it comes to choice. That the next second of our life, when I'm done talking, nobody in the history of the world has written the next second of what's going to happen. Therefore, that's a powerful thing to know that choice is there. I'm going to decide how I want to approach the next moment, and if I want to try to get better, 1 inch better, then that is my decision. So yes, the answer is I still have I have a very conscious relationship with where I've come from. And a very conscious relationship with where I want to go.
So what would you tell an entrepreneur who maybe doesn't have such a defined story, personal story? I mean, we all have our stories. Some are better than others. I mean, yep. I remember when I started speaking, the National Speakers Association, and I would go to meetings and the people would get up and talk about their story was, let's see, I was on a plane and I was a hostage on an airplane. It was like, well, yep. Shit, I can't beat that one. It's like, every story got better and better and they were all true. And it's like, how do you compete, or how do you settle in? How do you define yourself within the big stories and the not so big stories? Because I think it is all about your personal story, telling the truth about yourself to others in a way that they can hear it in a way that benefits both sides is really powerful. We're using that word a lot today, but it's true because it shows vulnerability and a great deal of intelligence, certainly, to not hide everything. And the transparency, of course, that's another favorite word. But what do you do with someone who is just ordinary?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that. There's two pieces that come to mind. One is being an entrepreneur is hard. Therefore, there's going to be a time where you need to look around and find scaffolding, and you might find that in the people that support you. You might find that in the business that you're creating. But part of that is going to have to be found internally. And I promise you, everybody has had a bad day, a bad moment, a bad situation. Look at it, think about someone who was shorter, one of the shorter people in your class when you were the tallest. In their head, they might be making fun of you, but they're doing it because they don't have the confidence that they perceive you have for being tall. That's the nature of human beings. We tend to put each other down, but it's not us really putting them down. It's a lack of confidence. There's a struggle going on internally. But you have someone there that's in there as the shortest person in the class saying, man, what would life be like if I could be the tallest? So when you put it into perspective, my bad moment was being called fat for the first time, and then having to navigate life as someone that I did not want to be. But everybody has it, whether that's a parent that got divorced, a parent that yelled at them, a parent that said you'll never amount to anything, a teacher that said I'm going to fail you because you're not good enough. Like when you when you really dive deep into your story and you cut the bullshit, everybody has something, and it doesn't matter. Like the weight of that moment is irrelevant to others because it's only relevant to you. It's how do you take that and turn it into fuel. And when those tough moments as an entrepreneur, when you're feeling lonely, when you're feeling scared, when you're feeling like you might not make it to tomorrow, how do you dive into yourself and find it? And it doesn't even have to be that big a thing. It could be, I tripped over the sidewalk and broke my arm. It could be the simplest thing in the world, as long as you have the skill set and the mindset that you're willing to reflect on where you've come from.
Okay. So tell your truth no matter what.
That's it. Absolutely.
Well, that's important for people to hear. So I always tell people at the end of the podcast is to re-listen to it because I'm sure they've missed something. So I'm going to say that right now, and I'll say it again at the end. Re-listen to this podcast. So you're going to talk today, and you are talking about it, of course, leveraging this personal story to drive success in your business goals. Give me an example of someone that you have worked with or someone who participated in one of your events who has used their personal story besides yourself. I know you have. You're telling this, and it's also in your book, Sticks and Stones. But give me an example of someone that has done that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the categories that our business works on is franchising. And the crazy thing about franchising, it is made up of entrepreneurial people, but not entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are the ones that create the idea. Entrepreneurial people are the ones that say, I want to risk some of my life savings to take a risk to build wealth for my family by following a model that someone else created. So it's still entrepreneurial, not as entrepreneur. But the reality is still to come to the decision. It's going to be that decision most likely is going to happen once in a lifetime for them to say, I'm willing to quit my job and invest my life savings into brand X and become a franchisee. Well, when you start diving into some of those, it is insane the amount of people that are like, well, yeah, I dealt with weight issues. I dealt with height issues. I dealt with an abusive parent. But all of those, because they've hit this trigger where they've decided to now go into business for themselves, not by themselves, as a part of a franchise system, that they needed something of confidence to get there. And the reality is all of them have it. So the success stories, and that's in micro small business, not macro celebrity status. They all have it, and it's cool to watch them go through this self-reflection for them to pull out that story. We have clients. We have a client called Wing Zone. They're a delivery wing chain. Their co-founders, the first order that they sent out as restaurant operators of chicken wings was raw. Oh boy, that could ruin their business. But that motivated them. They're like, well, crap, we got it wrong. Oh man, let's go get it right. Now, the ones that end up not doing something with that are the ones that take failure and take it as a fail and don't try to get up and try it again. Now, some of those people, even if you failed many, many times and you didn't get back up and you're like, I'm a failure. Not a problem, because eventually enough failures will give you enough fuel to make you say, you know what, now's the time. I'm ready to go. For me, I pitched 2 business ideas, and it's in the book, to my former employer. Both were told they would not work. And that second time, it was this thing called social media that I felt would transform the agencies. And at that point, we're using MySpace profiles as the tool for social media. It didn't exist for business in 2007. Well, that was enough. I felt like not his fault for being the straw that broke the camel's back. I was done being told no, and I did something about it. So all those other times being told no, I probably took it to heart, as no meant someone else was defining me. And then that one moment I switched the trigger, and it made a big difference. And, kind of the rest is history. I took the leap. But that happens every day with our clients, with friends. And again, it's that self-reflection. It's the willingness to dive deep inside your soul and say, what were the things that didn't feel right? And how can I leverage these to make me feel better about what I'm trying to accomplish?
Well, I like the fact that you didn't take no for an answer. And that's really important, because too many people stop. They see no as a stop, and certainly showed up in your client who sent out raw chicken. But you have to, everything can be transformed. You can see the other side of things all the time if you're aware enough. And that's another thing that a lot of entrepreneurs they're not aware of who they are, which is one of the things that I try to talk about. That's where I come in, like, who are you? What is your stamina level? Are you willing to dive deep into your own soul and your own being and your own brain to find it's like I'm writing something about gifts. The gifts we receive at birth, which you had, obviously. You had a gift of, I don't know, stick-to-itiveness, not caring about others, something like that came with you, regardless of your weight. Your weight is a separate issue. And you have these gifts that you're given, except not everybody uses them. They just think it's just part of who they are, not being able to discern enough of how valuable these gifts are.
Yep.
So talk to me about your No Limit agency, a full service communications agency. Talk to me a little bit about that. I want people to hear that the success that you have made of yourself. So brag a little, please.
Oh, love it. So it's been an incredible journey, but I'm not going to say I'm not one to pretend and say it's easy. I'll say I remember right when I started it, I met a guy who ran an agency in Florida, and he no longer did. He was a consultant now. And I said, why? He goes, we got up to 20 people. He goes, because working with people is tough. Mm-hmm. And there's such truth in that call it there's founder syndrome, where the founder, like, nobody's going to ever match the passion or drive of the founder. It's typical in most businesses until it gets professionalized and it's run by executives. Mm-hmm. So getting to the place of us being successful, I'm not going to say has been easy. It is a journey. It is a battle, and every day, even 10 years later, is not easy. But there's some good things that have happened. We landed on a really strong positioning of how do we do PR, which is that brands don't sell brands, people do. We treat PR, media relations, like sales. So I asked my team to get on the phone and pitch the journalist with a headline. Now it's disruptive, but it works. The volume of press we're able to book is significant because we're calling the reporter and saying, look, we're not going to give you some BS story. We're going to give you the true human interest story that you're going to have passion about writing. Here's why you would have interest in it. And 9 out of 10 times the reporter says, oh, fascinating, versus, hey, have you seen my email? So it's allowing us to be a little bit different than everyone else. So today, with that as a foundation, with the mindset that if you're able to connect silos of communications, you can win. Two easy examples. One is Dos Equis as a beer company, relatively unknown. They take the most interesting man in the world, the personal interest story, and they put it all over the place that people could relate to. Man, if I drink that beer and that mosquito bites me, I'm going to get super strong muscles. But it created something that would relate to that was above the product. Now, Bud Light comes out and does the same thing. With Dilly Dilly, they nail a message, Super Bowl commercial. But what was fascinating is you go on social or on their website at that point, and that message doesn't continue. It has nothing to do with Dilly Dilly. So there's a brand that marketing agency came up with a great idea, did not connect the silos, and when they had an opportunity, in what I would call another game over opportunity like Dos Equis did, they failed to achieve it. And they humanized it, but they forgot to connect the silos. So our agency has done a nice job at doing that. We rep about 100 different brands. We have 40 people in our shop. We're fighting the good fight every day. We've launched a technology piece. It's 1851 and ESTATENVY, which is where we're trying to take the future of social media and content marketing. Where do those two intersect? So there's hunger to try to not do what everybody else has done, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what our team has accomplished. So yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible run, but agency is probably the wrong term. It's more so like trying to become a best-in-class business that is built around great culture that keeps people here and great recruiting that finds more great humans to join our team.
That was pretty good. It was a good précis about your business, because this is really important that people have to know not only can they do it, what they can accomplish. Not that you're going to get competition based on what you said, but they can have a business. You're not just spewing forth language in order to fill the time. You're coming up with something that's rational, logical, and exists in this universe. And a full-service communication agency that provides not only the headline but the content to journalists, and I use that term loosely today. They have to fill space, and if you're lucky enough to be able to connect with more than one to be able to do that, good for you. So how can they leverage their story? Give me another example of someone leveraging their story, because people are listening for this right now.
Yep. Yeah. So here's the truth. It still comes down to human interest is how people buy. Take Apple and Sony, and I'm really fascinated by those two brands in how did one become good and how did one become great. And in my opinion, you have Sony that had this guy Nobutashi who created the Walkman, the digital camera, and the camcorder. So arguably three of the greatest inventions that live in our pocket today. And Steve Jobs took all those three inventions and doubled it with his to create the next wave of technology. Apple always put Steve Jobs first. Sony put product first. It doesn't make Sony a bad company, but Nobutashi never goes front and center. What fascinates me is they both die in 2011. One leaves the world forgotten, one leaves the world remarkable. So my advice to anybody that is operating a business, stop being afraid to tell your story. Your story is what is going to connect whatever product or service you've created with the audience and persona that you're trying to target. So the more you can humanize your brand, the better shot you have to win. And don't overlook your customers. Your customers help you humanize that story. Find great customer stories. That's like the reason testimonials exist is because testimonials are humans telling other humans why they want to work with that brand. Well, testimonial is kind of boring because it's so stagnant. It's such a simple form of content. Engage with them. Build a podcast. Talk with your customers, and you'll have all the material in the world, because brands don't sell brands, people do.
There you go. Brands don't sell brands, people do. All right, how can people find you?
I am the only Nick Powills in the world. Some legacy grandparents down the line said Pavilitis was not a good name, so they changed it to Powills, and then spelled it the only way that our family is spelled. So if you Google Nick Powills, it will probably auto-correct you, but you can find me. But the book site is stickstonesoar.com, and that links out to everything else that we do.
And those of you who are listening, if you want to get in touch with Nick right away, you can email him at nick@nolimitagency.com. That's nolimitagency.com. All right. I want to thank you for being here today because it's been extremely interesting, and I appreciate your authenticity. And you did help people discover a life of success based on your own truth. I also want to ask people to, again, re-listen to this podcast. Give it to your friends. If you are an entrepreneur or thinking about becoming an entrepreneur or thinking about becoming entrepreneurial, want to buy a franchise, listen to this and give it to your group. Have them listen to it as well. You can also go to my website at askjoannevictoria.com, and there's a free book there for you called The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. And there's a free report, 5 steps towards life-work harmony, which is what I support. That's askjoannevictoria.com. I thank you all for listening. It's been a great event here with Nick Powills, the only one in the world. And have a great day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to askjoannevictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's askjoannevictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.